Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe of Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show, and lots to talk about in this one as well. A little bit of a reverse. It doesn't seem like you're going to ride the highest of highs for long this season with the Winnipeg Jets. I had noticed after their last game, thrilling victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs. A lot of people talking like it was one of the best sports days we've ever seen in Winnipeg, with the Bombers winning and then the Jets sticking it to the Leafs the way they did. Felt like a very celebratory atmosphere, not just with the Jets, but within the fan base. And with that win, they jump. I think they were in 6th place and jumped all the way to 2nd place in the Central Division. Well, a couple days later, a Jets loss, and now the Jets find themselves right there, back in 6th place in the Central Division. The two teams right ahead of them with 3 games in hand, both the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. So the Jets right in the thick of the fight this year. It's going to be a grinder, at least for a while. Comment room is already going, and I got to say, I got to agree with a lot of what's going on here. Marshall Patterson says, that was a great team showing what a great team looks like. Terry M. agreeing, says, exactly, the Jets could learn something. And Phyllis says, it's good that they get these games in early this season. Now they know what to expect from powerhouse teams like Carolina. I mean, I think there was probably an idea they should already know what to expect from a team like that. Palmieri said it himself. He didn't feel he had the team prepared for their speed tonight. That's a coach's L, the way that he said it tonight. He'll take ownership for that, but I'd said it at the end of the game. To me, we always talk about measuring stick games, and I know people like to think of that game against Edmonton earlier on, where they won 5-1 in that last game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Someone made a pretty good point on my timeline, about the last 2 games that the Jets won that had everybody feeling so good. It was 2 teams coming off back-to-back situations, coming off playing a really tough Minnesota Wild team, and both teams with their backup goaltenders. So, I mean, it's all in how you look at it, but there was a real good feeling with the Winnipeg Jets. I don't think we're back to, losing 5 of 6 games territory, but I'll say this, that was a reality check. If that was a measuring stick game, the Winnipeg Jets came up well short in that game. Lots to talk about, so let's get to it. The best guy to bring in to talk about it is my main man, Ken Wiebe. Welcome, Kenny, into the show. Ken Wiebe, my friend, no matter how much a downer a loss is, there's always a pick-me-up in your theme music bringing you into the show. And bringing you into the show is a pick-up in itself, and already the happy birthdays are pouring in. Ken, there's an interesting take here, and I want you to remind me. We either talked about this last show. We do so many of these Kenny and Renny shows, I'm starting to lose track on whether we talk about this stuff on air or off air. But Jeff Bose says the Jets have a hard time against good offensive teams or good defensive teams. Now, you and I have had the conversation. I know. I just don't know if we've had it on the show here. But I've said this in the past. The Jets struggle against teams that interrupt their flow. I think the Jets are a flow team. They love that flow, and that's what we saw from the Jets against the Devils. That's what we saw against them, against Toronto. Tonight, I think, was a perfect example of what I say when I say that the Jets struggle with teams that take them out of their flow, because that's what Carolina did. Kevin Sawyer off the TSN broadcast had the perfect word for it. He called Carolina a sticky team. It's like going into the bushes and coming out with either sap or like burrs all over top of you. You couldn't get them off you. That's what it was like with the Jets and the Carolina Hurricanes tonight. What did you see as far as my theory of the Jets loving to play with a little bit of momentum, a little bit of consistency, and how that consistency was interrupted on a night like tonight?
Yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes played the role of the disruptor this evening, Sean. It was right out of the gate. I mean, geez, they could have scored 3 goals on that opening shift, and lo and behold, it's a seeing eye special from the point. But no, the Jets just did not get to speed at all today. They had a couple of opportunities to hang around, but, I mean, let's be honest. We were kind of wondering, man, how are the Jets even in this hockey game? They give up the late power play goal late in the second period. And after that, the early power play goal in the third, and that was it. That was lights out, curtains. I mean, sure, if Freddie Anderson doesn't get the sweep of the leg when Pierre-Luc Dubois gets to the net after the Ehlers try, maybe it's tight again. But this one was never really in doubt. And that it's hard to say that when it was a 2-2 game, right? I mean, but to be honest, Carolina was... in a lot of ways, the game was never in doubt, and that's because of the way that they played so aggressively in all 3 zones. Do the Jets sometimes struggle against good defensive teams? Sure, but the Jets had no trouble against the St. Louis Blues in terms of generation, and that's one of the better defensive teams in the league. So, I would say you can't make it as a blanket statement, but the Jets also struggle occasionally with teams with speed, Sean, and this is a team with great speed. Again, and it's not just on the forecheck. They're aggressive in the neutral zone. They're aggressive at the offensive blue line. They're aggressive at the defensive blue line. And even if you chip the puck past them, there always seems to be another layer of defense again to try to poke through, and that just was not happening for the Jets. And hey, we talked about it. The Jets are trying to get to tougher areas. You asked Nikolai Ehlers about it. You asked Paul Maurice about it. A lot of the goals the Jets scored when pumping in 14 were either off the rush or the 4 goals on the power play. And even though the Jets did get the 1 power play goal, they did not do enough in terms of generation, and that's because Carolina made it so incredibly difficult with their ferocious and relentless defensive play. That's definitely not the kind of game the Jets can play if they want to beat a team like Carolina, if they would run into them against the playoffs. So, it's interesting. We thought that we looked at this game, Sean, both of us, this was going to be a big test, a different kind of test, because of how the Carolina Hurricanes play. And it's super interesting, Sean. It's hard to imagine that the Carolina Hurricanes also just went through a stretch where they lost 5 of 6. How does a team that structured go through a stretch of 5 of 6 losses? Well, part of that is COVID related, but it's a reminder that even good teams go through some tough times, but there was no doubt who the better team was on this evening, and that was the Carolina Hurricanes. And we know the Jets want to measure themselves against teams like this. They didn't measure up today. Now, how are they going to respond? That's the bigger issue. They're playing a Seattle Kraken team that's been playing much better after a really tough start. And guess what? You get the Vancouver Canucks, who just so happened to get the Bruce Boudreau bump in his debut last night. So there's no break for the Jets. They went 2-2 in this homestand. They showed some good things. They had to get their offense going. They did. But then they lost a decisive game today. And don't let the score fool you. This was not a close game. Even though it was a tie game at one point, this was not a close game. The Carolina Hurricanes put on a clinical performance. It was a dominant showing. And having said that, if the Jets' power play gets them anything during that 5-minute major, maybe we're having a different discussion. However, the Jets did not play well enough. They're going to need to play better, and we'll see how they respond now. This is another important litmus test when they go out on the road here. And sorry, that's a quick trip to the buffet. I left the seafood tower there for you, though, Sean.
There we go.
I wanted to make sure. I'll just answer this one before we get rolling. The reason why there was no recall, I think the Jets were planning on playing Nathan Beaulieu today. So rather than have the defenseman who will be called up from the Moose get on a plane, I think, Paul Maurice explained it, that he will have that player join them on the road trip. I'm not sure if that player, based on how today went, will that player suit up for the Moose against the Laval Rocket tomorrow? I'm not 100% sure. The Jets' puck movement was not strong enough. So if they're planning on calling up Ville Heinola, which we're not clear on at this point, maybe you consider calling up Heinola if that's who you're considering. If you're considering calling up Johnny Kovacevic, we'll see that either tomorrow or we'll see it on Wednesday. But I'm very curious to see which way the Jets go in terms of the recall. They abandoned Paul Maurice did say in the morning that he planned to use both players on the right. Logan Stanley was back on the left full-time by the start of the third period for sure. May have even been late in the second. I don't know that the experiment went quite as well as he had hoped, but we'll see what happens on the back end. I mean, Sean, who are you expecting to be recalled?
Well, I'm not sure. I think to the point, I would think it would be Ville Heinola based on what you're talking about, the needs for a puck-moving defenseman. That would be my assumption. I don't think I have that much more to add to that question. I did want to get to this
Sure.
this comment by it's your boy Bruce. Why do the Jets, a team with speed, struggle against teams with speed? I entirely agree with this assessment, and let's dig into this. I see it this way. Again, when we talk about those last two games that we saw the Jets play, it's one of the reasons why I think people always think that so highly of the Jets' chances, because if you allow the Jets to play that game where it's kind of wide open, where it's risky, where you get odd man rushes, I honestly don't think there's a better team in the NHL playing that game than the Winnipeg Jets. So when the Jets are allowed to play that style, I think they're the best team in the league. Now, the problem is, I think that what we saw from Carolina is a team that plays that style like the Jets, right? Likes to speed down the ice, likes to score off the rush, but they also like to get to the dirty areas in the front of the net. Sebastian Aho is not a big man, but he was in front of the net fighting off people and jamming it at Connor Hellebuyck's pads. And we'll get to that goal because you had a great conversation. I'll call it a conversation because It was just you talking about it with Connor Hellebuyck. But I mean, he's grinding in that area, but then they're just as hard on the puck defensively. And I know that's where Paul Maurice wants the Jets to get to, but I do think that the Jets are a little bit of a downhill team. If they can get the ice tilted in their direction, that's where they're at their best. And they like to skate and they like to score off the odd man rush. And we get that sleight of hand goal quite often that we see from the top line, and we get the 2-on-1s that you'll see from Nick Ehlers and whoever he's playing with Kopp or Stastny tonight. We saw that, but I've always said this, and I think go back and look at that Vegas series, and I don't think a lot has changed because a lot of the core of this team hasn't changed. But if you are a fast team with good sticks that interrupt the Jets' flow, I think they're a team that gets frustrated. I think they like to skate and be fast, and when you take them out of being fast, they get frustrated. That's why I think they struggle with teams with speed. Not so much defensive teams. I think there's defensive teams out there that go into a defensive shell, but if they're a kind of team, like the New York Islanders, maybe that's a bad example because the Jets lost to the New York Islanders earlier this year, but New York will let you possess the puck. So the Jets can at least stay in motion with the puck at that point. But a team like this did exactly what Vegas did to them in the 2018 playoffs, and that's just get in the way of passing lanes. Get on you before you've got time to move the puck. And I agree with this issue boy Bruce take on this. The Jets struggle with teams that have speed and are committed to defending. And it's one of the reasons I think Paul Maurice has talked about adding a new style of offense. I'm going to get into that right now. I think this game is a perfect example of why Paul Maurice this season is pushing hard for his team to discover a new kind of offense. I'll call it the Pierre-Luc Dubois style of offense, because I do think that this is the importance of Pierre-Luc Dubois on this team, is he naturally has that style of game baked in. We saw it tonight when he almost scored on that Nikolai Ehlers shot to rebound that was stolen off the goal line by Anderson. But the Jets needed more of that. And to me, that was the only instance of them taking it hard to the net and crashing the net tonight. And against a team that is just absolutely shutting you down, I think there's got to be a realization at some point. I talked about this last game. The Jets got to find, when the game is wide open, sure, play your wide open style. When it's not, you got to find another way. You got to learn how to grind a game down and either win it 1-0, or in a game like that, you got to find a way to get the puck to the front of the net and jam it in. And the Jets didn't get close to doing that on this night.
Yeah, Sean, and the other part too, I mean, they do an excellent job of disrupting your speed. I used the word earlier. I mean, they're a nuisance. They're always in the way, right? That's where the sticky comes out. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's in the neutral zone, in the offensive zone, they're getting a body on you. They're getting in your way. They're making it difficult. You're going to have to go either through them or around them, and there's not much room on either side. The Jets struggled. I mean, we were talking about this downstairs before we came up. So I looked it up, Sean. High danger chances today, according to Natural Stat Trick, at 5-on-5. We're 15-1 for the Carolina Hurricanes. That was not an accident. It was not an accident. Those guys went to the blue paint. You talked about Sebastian Aho. 7 shots on goal, 13 attempts. He's not the biggest guy on the ice. He's not built like Pierre-Luc Dubois, but he got to the blue paint, which is exactly where he scored the second goal of the game, as controversial as it may have been for Connor Hellebuck. I mean, that's what you see happening. Vinny Trocheck was involved with the biggest guy on the ice, Logan Stanley, getting in his way, beaking him, all kinds of things. What does he do early in the third? Gets to the net, bangs home a rebound. I mean, on a play created by Sebastian Aho. I don't think we can use a blanket statement, Bruce, in terms of the Jets always struggling against speed. I mean, I did say it myself. They do occasionally struggle against speed. The Toronto Maple Leafs are a fast team. The Jets did not struggle against the Maple Leafs, but they're not nearly as committed defensively as the Carolina Hurricanes are, even though they've improved defensively and their back pressure is really good. But that's the other thing. They're not just structurally sound in zone. They do a great job in terms of their back pressure, and they don't get caught on odd man rushes. The way the Jets kind of took the Leafs to school the other night was by using their speed going in transition. The ability to move the puck in transition and create chances, that's what they did on Sunday against the Leafs. We didn't see that transition game really moving at all because the Carolina Hurricanes consistently got in the way of the Jets getting to speed. All kinds of examples in the neutral zone of breaking up passes. Even on the power play, there were not a lot of tape-to-tape passes available. And if you try to go all the way across the ice with cross-ice passes, those get knocked down and taken the other way. So it's super interesting to see. Again, this is the Jets will say this is a one-off, but it's up to them to show that it's a one-off. We know that it's not the first time this has happened, and now we'll have to see how they respond to it. I mean, I didn't think that. I mean, the Jets didn't play well. As you mentioned, Paul Maurice usually can find a positive. He didn't have much positive to say about this game. That's because there wasn't really much positive outside of the ridiculous goal that Pierre-Luc Dubois scored between his legs on the one time the Jets made the aggressive nature of the Carolina Hurricanes come back to bite them. That's simply not enough. I mean, that's an impressive play. It's a great pass by Wheeler through the feet of an opponent. And the play by Dubois in front is absolutely ridiculous, going between the legs and then being able to tip it into the air past Anderson. But other than that, I mean, the Jets just did not generate much at all. And not only was their power play not good enough outside of that goal, the power play was another massive letdown for them, much like it was in the game against Calgary. And much like it was in the third period against the Arizona Coyotes at the very beginning of this homestand.
Yeah, you know what? You brought up Toronto. I think one of the reasons why the Jets games are always so good against Toronto is I think they're bitten by the same bug. I think they're two teams that are in love with pretty goals and scoring off the rush. And so, like I said, I think when you play that game, I don't think there's a better team in the league at that than the Winnipeg Jets. But I'll say this, Paul Maurice said he didn't like this game. This isn't one of those games that you can take and crumple up and throw in the garbage and move away from, Ken. I think this game is the precise lesson that this Winnipeg Jets team needs to learn if it's going to have success and go deep this year. Because this is the point where the Jets need to find a way to abandon the mindset of pretty goals and scoring off the rush and finding different ways to score, and there looked to be zero commitment to that tonight. Like that, you'd said it. It's no fluke. If the high danger chances were 15-1, like 5-on-5 was dominant. They were two entirely different teams out there tonight. the Jets getting that and someone said it, the 4-on-4 goal, suddenly there's more space on the ice and the Jets can get flowing and moving some more. They make them pay in that situation. I've always said this. The Winnipeg Jets, when they go out and can force coincidental penalties, it's always a good move for the Winnipeg Jets, because I'll take the Jets 4-on-4 against any other team in the league. I love their chances when that happens. And then they get the power play goal, which made it look as though their power play was continuing right where it left off, and it did, looking good. And like you said, that goal, great job by Wheeler to find Pierre-Luc Dubois all alone, and phenomenal redirect by Blake Wheeler. But this is the lesson the Jets need to learn. I talked about it on the last show, and someone in the chat room had made some kind of crack about me saying, "Oh yeah, let's just play like the Tampa Bay Lightning." Yeah, I get it, and I knew that was going to come, but I say that because I think the Jets have a team that is similar in construction to the Tampa Bay Lightning. But what Tampa has shown over the years that the Winnipeg Jets haven't shown is that when the going gets tough, they've got different ways to win games. The Winnipeg Jets, to me, like I said, the best team when it's wide open in the NHL, in my opinion. But when things close up, they seem to want to try and force that game. This team needs to start having a recognition of when it needs to pull out other types of offense. And tonight was that night. And I think this is the game tape they need to show and say, look, at this point of the game, when you tried to, make an extra pass, or you tried to hold on to it a little bit too long, this is when you got to chip it in, and the net, that's when Kyle Connor's got to chip it in. And Mark Scheifele, who we're told by the coach is the fastest player on the Winnipeg Jets, faster than Kyle Connor, faster than Nick Ehlers, that's when he needs to be using that speed to go retrieve the puck and then start grinding down low like we know he can do on the boards, or have Blake Wheeler do the same thing. Paul Maurice says that he's loved that side of Blake Wheeler's game this year, that he can get in and get on the puck. Well, this is a game where they need those guys to get in and get on the puck. It did not happen tonight. They were looking for two pretty goals, and they need to move on from that. Ken, we talked about the power play and how it had been going well. What went wrong on that 5-minute power play? Because at that point, it looked like the Jets were working their way back into the game. And I'll say this about the Carolina Hurricanes: they slammed the door shut in that 5-minute power play, and then just kept it going for the rest of the game. Absolutely turned any idea of the Jets coming back in that game into an absolute fallacy.
Well, let's start with the zone entries that were almost non-existent. They were very difficult to attain for the Winnipeg Jets because of how aggressive the Carolina Hurricanes are at the line in terms of stacking the line. When they did get set up, they had no time to move the puck. And the only time you can do that is if you can. Nikolai Ehlers had a great explanation, Sean. You have to be able to go side to side when you're facing a penalty kill that's that aggressive. We talked about how aggressive the Jets try to be, on the goal the other night by Damon Severson. Carolina set up the fence on that side, and they kept knocking the puck down. Even in the situations where the Jets were outnumbering the Hurricanes down low and in the corner, guess who came up with the puck? Carolina. And they found a way to get it down the ice, which was something that the Jets were unable to do when they allowed those two power play goals that put the game on ice for Carolina. So, I mean, again, where to start? Poor zone entries. Once they got set up, they didn't move the puck quickly enough, and then they didn't get the shot away. I mean, we did see one quick shot from Nate Schmidt, but we didn't see enough. I mean, earlier on, you saw Kyle Connor get a couple of quick shots off, but it seemed to me, Sean, and I think you'll agree, in the first period on the Jets' power play, Kyle Connor, they had no time. Like, this was like the old days when the opponent would try to take away the one-timer for Patrick Laine. They were in that lane saying, you know what, you're going to have to get it from somewhere else. And I'm with John on this one. I didn't mean to interrupt, but or I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but I'll take Tampa in the wide open game as in
Nothing interrupts my flow.
That's right. I will also. I mean, the Jets are very good on the rush, but I'll still take the team with the last two rings in terms of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And again, I'll stay on that point for a second.
I'll take the Lightning because the Lightning know how to break it down defensively.
Okay.
But if the two teams are going to play pond hockey all day long, I like the Jets' chances, right? It's just one team recognizes the need to move away from that.
No, fair. all I'm saying is that, I mean, they have an MVP in Nikita Kucherov, and, you know, Braden Point is a pretty dynamic player who's done it when the chips have been down. So, and they do have a little, right now they have a little bit, right now they have a little bit more depth. And even, too, look at the goal by Andre Palat that he scores today for the GWG against the Montreal Canadiens.
Alex Killorn is one of the highest scoring Canadians in the league right now.
Right. Yeah. Is he on the long list? I mean, anyways, we don't want to get off topic here. The Jets' power play was not good enough. Neither unit was able to generate. And they're going to have to be better. I mean, the Jets are going to be missing Neil Pionk for at least 2 more games. And after that, we'll see what happens. But I don't think that either one of the units looked very crisp today. There was, like I said, two excellent individual efforts. First the pass and then the tip. But overall, the Jets did not do a good enough job in terms of their puck movement. And that's something that's got to be better, because the special teams can't cost a team that is on the bubble games. And for the Jets, it's cost them far too many games. And once again, it can't happen now for a while, but part of the benefit potentially of the Jets losing Riley Nash is that it could expedite. I mean, again, an expedite is probably not the right word, but that sound you hear in the background could be the Gus bus backing up and potentially moving into town. But it can't happen until Neil Pionk is back in the lineup, at least not after the defenseman is called up, whether that be tomorrow or Thursday or whatever day he gets there to join the Jets. But, I mean, when a penalty kill needs work and you have someone that can help in that area, among others, I think that the Jets just cannot delay this much longer. Again, I'm not saying Gustafsson will single-handedly solve the penalty killing woes, but he can improve the unit as a whole, and that's why I want to see him in the lineup.
Well, I want to take a look at T. Will says, get shots on net, crash and tuck it in. It's not rocket surgery. I like this comment from him, because that is how Carolina scored tonight. And I'll say this. I'm not saying that Gus doesn't help in that vein, but I think the way that the Jets penalty kill is set up right now, Ken, is they're trying to drive a wedge on the players on top and get them to move it down the boards, and then pressure them to try and trap it down in the corner, cause a board battle, a turnover, and get it down. So they're being very aggressive in trying to direct the opposition power play down into the corners like that. But what I find is happening with that is they're just finding a way to get it back up top and throwing it to the net. And in the Jets' rush to trap them in the corners, they're leaving the front of the net wide open. And I think we saw it tonight with 2 of those goals. We saw players that had time and space to operate and take rebounds and jam them in the net. And so, I mean, T. Will's got it absolutely right here. This is how you do it in today's NHL. And I was chatting with some guys about it upstairs. You can do it more in today's NHL because you don't have to worry about getting cross-checked in the back. So some of the guys up in the press box were saying this is the direction all power plays are going in. Just get something to the front of the net and jam it in. We're not seeing that necessarily from the Winnipeg Jets because they seem to because they can pass in a way that most other teams can't. You saw it again last game with Kyle Connor's goal. Great passing play. He scores power play goal. Tonight, Blake Wheeler setting him chipping it in. Gorgeous goals. The Jets can still score in that really high skill shooting lane kind of way. But that's exactly what turned around and bit them on the butt in that 5-minute play. Like, I mean, how many times had they turned the puck over and sent it down the ice? And then I saw Blake Wheeler got the puck on the wall and tried to sauce it through the middle. It got knocked down and sent down. It's like, at that point, that should not be the play. I mean, it's stubbornness at that point of the Jets wanting to win, but only wanting to win the way they like to win. There's got to be other ways they find to win, and doing that is not the case. I wanted to bring something up here, Ken. Jamie Compon is still at work on the power play.
Yep.
We know his wife has cancer. He's staying down in LA where they live for that fight. The Jets have made it clear, as we know and fully expected the Jets would do, in an honorable way, saying that they're not moving on from their coach, they're keeping him. So he does his work remotely. Do you think that's having any effect on this team's ability to come up with the game plan that they're trying to execute?
I mean, Jamie Compon's an incredibly
Go on, sorry.
hard worker. So I think he's doing the best that he can in the situation that he's in. I mean, if Jamie Compon were here with FaceTime with the players.
You're having microphone issues there, Ken. Unplug it and plug it back in. There you go. Better. You muted yourself, Ken. Unmute yourself.
All right. Sorry about that.
Better.
I mean, Paul Maurice used the word energy giver when referring to Yevgeny Svechnikov this morning. That's what Jamie Compon is. He's an energy giver. He loves being around the rink. He loves talking to players. He loves helping guys individually, and he loves helping the units that he's involved with. So do I think it would be helpful if Jamie Compon was around? Of course, but that's just not the situation that they're in right now. Dave Lowry has also worked on the power play during his time with Los Angeles. So, I don't think this is a structural issue. I mean, the Jets just scored 3 goals on the power play against the Toronto Maple Leafs 2 days ago. So I don't think one day we can say the power play is great, and the other day the idea for the power play is not great. I mean, power plays run in cycles. Today it was not good enough. They got 1, and there too. So for the Jets, they scored 3 games in a row in the power play. That doesn't sound like much, but they had 5 power play goals in the last 3 games. So I'm not out here saying, no, the Jets power play needs to be overhauled, but it let them down today. I mean, even though they got 1. So, I mean, can it be improved? Of course, but I don't think it's this to me. Again, can coaches have a big impact at times? For sure. But to me, the Jets did not execute. I mean, we can't say that the system was great on Sunday because it worked, and then today it's not great because they didn't score. I mean, it's going to be up and down. I mean, that's just the way that it is. And the Jets needed to be better on it, and they weren't. They didn't get the job done. So
your microphone's causing problems again, Ken. You know what I want to get to from here, because someone had asked about it in the chat room, the Ian Cole hit. Interesting that we go down that road right after a game in which a couple kneeing penalties resulted in some suspensions. We should talk about all that, Ken, and get into everything there. But let's start with Ian Cole tonight, who I thought was single-handedly trying to get the Jets back into the game by taking the first delay of game penalty that resulted in the Jets power play goal, got them back in there. But that hit on Scheifele, to me, dangerous, entirely unnecessary. What did you take away from that? Oh, I guess he's not in here. I'll go on. I mean, I appreciated that he was shown the gate. I thought that when the officials went and had another look at it, I don't mind that either. You know, the idea of reviewing a play like that to check and see whether or not that it was dangerous. It sure struck me as the officials on this evening trying to maintain control of the game, knowing that the hockey world may be watching based on how poorly the officials handled that game against Toronto the other night. Did you get that sense at all, Ken?
Well, one of the officials was in the game, so I'm sure he was on notice, right? One of the 2 refs did the game on Sunday. Reed Anderson, I think, as far as it wasn't Reed Anderson and Brad Meyer on Sunday. So, yes, I mean, I didn't like the hit. I don't think it was a good play, and it got what it deserved. I mean, I don't know that it'll be a suspendable play. It was a 5-minute major in a game misconduct. I mean, again, I don't think the intent for Cole was to stick his leg out, but he did. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a great play. I mean, I think this one is going to be called a major regardless, and it was going to be looked at. But of course, when something goes kind of haywire like the game did on Sunday, you're going to have a look at it, and that's what that they did. Sorry, let's go back. Sorry with the microphone here. I don't know what the heck's going on, but let's go to the second goal. I mean, you teased it earlier. Let's dive into what Connor Hellebuck had to say about goalie interference. And first of all, what was your take? No, first of all, what was your take on the goal, and then I'll go into his response.
Okay, I had no problem with the goal. I heard Connor Hellebuck's explanation of that. I think that we're getting into a soft league if a goal like that, where a puck is visible in the crease. To me, at that stage, it's a battle of wills. Like I don't like the idea of taking away, constantly stripping the toughness out of the game of hockey. The puck is there. It's visible. Connor Hellebuck has it's not like It's not like Sebastian Aho takes his stick and pokes it in Connor Hellebuck's chest and drives him back into the net, puck and all. He puts his stick on the stick, on the puck, keeps pushing, and he overpowers Hellebuck and puts it in the net. Now, I don't know what kind of league we're looking at if a puck that is in plain view, a guy can't put his stick on it and fight his way into the net because you can't make contact with the goaltender. That's where, I mean, jeepers, we're sitting here talking about wanting the Jets to go to the front of the net and crash the net. Why would anyone go to the front of the net if you cannot make any contact at all with a goaltender if the puck is sitting right there? I had zero problem with that penalty, and with that call and that goal. We know Connor Hellebuck is a competitor, and he's never going to like a play like that. He gave you a good explanation of what he wants, to the point that he's been pushing for the league to change these rules. I'll get you to take him through that, but having heard his explanation, it didn't change my mind. That was a good goal, and if we're taking those kind of goals out of hockey, we've got a problem.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know where you're coming from, and I think it's okay if you're driving to the net. The puck was only partially covered. I don't think I'm not sure it was in plain view. And the only thing that I would disagree with what you said, I don't know that Aho got the puck first. At least I didn't see an angle. I think he definitely got the pad first, which jarred the puck loose. And the only thing, I think Hellebuck explained it very well. If that stick is on the puck first, it should count every single time. I'm not sure that's what transpired. I'd have to have another look at it. But Hellebuck's point is that because the stick makes contact with his pad first, that's what spins him, and that's what jars the puck not only loose, but over the goal line. It wasn't that Aho poked it loose and then jammed it in. The puck went in because Hellebuck got spun, and if the player is in the crease and gets spun, I can understand where he's coming from. I totally understand both sides. I understand why Paul Maurice challenged it. I understand why Connor Hellebuck was upset about it, but I'm not overly surprised at the ruling, nor am I saying it's black and white. I think this is another great example, Sean, of the gray area when it comes to goalie interference, where for Connor Hellebuck, this isn't a one-off. It's a spinning the wheel of justice. Connor Hellebuck has seen all kinds of goalie interference, and it's almost never been called. He's had James Neal literally two-hand chop him in the face mask where the puck went down and went in, and it counted. He's had other masses of humanity in front of him where he can't get across and it's allowed to count. So I totally understand why Connor Hellebuck is disappointed about it. And this guy just wants a seat at the table. He made it very clear to me. He brought this up in a competition committee meeting, felt his voice was heard, and then there were no changes that happened. So I completely I thought he was very calm and composed. And I love the fact, I basically was to the point where when he was ending the answer, he was basically just short of offering to write a first-person account of how he'd like to see the rule changed. He said, "This is just on my mind right now," when he was clearly ticked off about the result. But this is something he's given a lot of thought. And no matter whether you agree with him or not, Sean, this is the kind of investment you want from players when it comes to the rules and how the league is governed. So I loved all of that about what I heard from Connor Hellebuck. And again, I appreciate the fact that he's willing to give that kind of an explanation. So like I said, I'm not as firm about it as you are, but I think this is a great example of the gray area that has come when it relates to goalie interference. And it's a tough job, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this was an obvious miss. I am saying that, it's easy to interpret from both sides.
I'll say this. I personally think any rules that, and I've said this for years, Ken, I've said it on this podcast before.
Yeah, you want more goals.
The only replay I want to see is, did the puck cross the line or not? I hate these offside by 2 or 3 inches. Does it really make that much of a difference? Do we really need to stop the play to do that kind of stuff? And to me, the road that Connor Hellebuck is suggesting they take it down leads to less goals. Now, if you're in front of the net, and we've seen it, Josh Morrissey got called on it tonight, but it wasn't the first time a guy in front of the net got buried by a defenseman when he's in front of the net. So if we're in this style of hockey where I'm in front of the net and I've got a chance at a loose puck and the defenseman can bury me and 50% of the time, if not more, the refs are just going to let it go because you're in the tough areas, and that's what happens in the tough areas. Or that the goaltender can actually stick his stick out and block my stick with his hand or his blocker or his pad to keep it from getting there. There's a million different ways for people to defend that situation. We're talking right now about, like, believe me, I know what people are saying, and I know what Connor Hellebuyck is talking about, the principal point of contact being his pad. There is no way that Sebastian Aho in that moment was like, I'm going to jab the pad to open things up. He was just jamming at the puck.
Agreed.
He's trying to get at the puck. And so in that situation, to me, it's a battle for the puck. There's an open puck. It's a battle for the puck. I've got no problem with that. The idea that a goalie should be able to operate entirely in a bubble and never have to run into contact, I disagree with that assessment from Connor Hellebuyck. It doesn't mean that a guy can just go and run a goalie over and take him out of the play. But in my mind, that is a battle between two players for the puck. Connor Hellebuyck has the opportunity. He's got the advantage because he can use his pads. He can use his blocker. He can use his glove. He can use his stick. He can use his head. He can use every part of him. Sebastian Aho can use his stick. That's it. It's a battle between two players, and Sebastian Aho won that battle. I have absolutely no problem with that play. And again, if we're taking those kind of plays out of hockey, to me, we're just bubble wrapping the heck out of this sport, and we need more goals. We need more goals. So I understand what people are saying, and I agree with people's assessment and your assessment that he hit the pad first. I just don't have a problem with a battle for the puck in the crease in which, like, are we really thinking that Sebastian Aho at 180 pounds had an advantage over Connor Hellebuyck, who's 6'5" and 220, and the defenseman who could have taken him out of the play? I've got no problem with the play. I'm not going to change my mind on that.
There you go. Sorry, because I had the issues with the microphone. Let's just put this up. I mean, I think the situations here, Trevor, are different. Because of the nature of the Rasmus Sandin injury where he's going to miss 2 or 3 weeks, I think that's probably why the severity of the suspension went to 2 games. I don't think, could Ian Cole get a game? Maybe. But I don't think he's going to get multiple games for the hit. And sorry, somebody else was trying to say it was a sell job by Scheifele. No. Come on. Let's go. This guy is trying to get out of the way. He was a clear knee-on-knee hit. Did he get right up and go on the power play? He was fortunate. I mean, there was a TV timeout. He stayed on the ice. That is not a, Scheifele obviously did nothing wrong in that situation. Do you think Cole will get a game, Sean? I mean, I'm not sure.
I think he will. I think he will. Especially because of the, like you said, the referee involved, what we just came from. Yeah. I mean, if there was a day that the NHL had set the standard that you shouldn't be kneeing players, it was today and yesterday, right? And Cole goes out and does that right off the bat, not right off the bat, but during that game, and against a valuable player. And to me, doesn't hold back, right? Like, it's the same conversation we had about, I'd said that about Pierre-Luc Dubois. I've got no problem with the play, but he didn't try to avoid the contact with Joseph Woll in that game. And that's the same situation that we're finding with Neil Pionk. Didn't try to avoid contact, went searching for the contact. Same deal with Jason Spezza. Cole, I think, it was the same kind of thing. He was in the train tracks, and this is me, I don't know, maybe I'm going in the exact opposite direction of what I just went in. But that's a dangerous play, and you got to try. To me, you got to make an effort to. It's less important to get a hold of that guy in that situation, and more important to try and leave, his ACL intact in that situation. So I do believe he's going to get a game. If he got shown the gate and the refs are already handling it that way, I think that we're going to see him. We're going to see some supplemental discipline. But
no injury. That's the other point that I was trying to make there. So that could lessen the blow. And because there was no penalty on the Pionk play, there was an injury. Here, there was a major assessed and there was no injury. I know it has to be down to intent, which is why I won't be surprised if he gets a game, but I don't think he'll get multiple games.
I know what you're saying. I don't think that can be the standard that a player is injured out of it, because
Oh, I
if it
don't
is,
disagree, but
then
that
we,
is often
then
the
we should be
standard.
going in the other direction. If you're going to cheap shot a guy and take him out for 5 games, it's the age-old suggestion, Ken. If you're going to cheap shot a guy and take him out for 10 games, then you should have to sit every game that guy sits, right? Like that's what we're heading to if we start getting into that. I don't think that has to be, or I don't think that should be the standard. I mean, dangerous hits are dangerous hits. They should be gone regardless. And you do.
Oh, totally
you do
fair. I want to get rid of the hit also. I'm sorry. What I'm just saying is that I think it's, I wouldn't say it's apples and oranges, but I don't think it's the exact same, because the situation is different because of the penalty calls and everything else.
Yeah.
Sorry, and what do you think of the Spezza suspension?
I don't. I mean, all that said, I thought it was surprising that he got 6. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised once he was offered an in-person hearing. You were expecting it to be beyond 5, right? Basically, that's so. Basically, they gave him the least amount they could have given him for an in-person hearing. Correct? That's where we're at, basically. So, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised. And I think it does go to me. The one thing I don't like about that, Ken, is Pionk getting 2 games and Spezza getting 6 games. I think there was intent on both. In the result, like you're talking about, the fact that I completely think that there was intent on Sandy, and I think he went chasing him. So there's intent on both, and I think, to your point, if you are penalizing not just the intent but the result of what happens, then what the NHL did in this situation is they prioritized head injuries over potentially blowing a player's knee up. Do you know what I mean? Where I think both are problematic, right? Like I think we're getting into gray, sticky areas here. Boy, it's funny. We're just going to be talking about that game. Like, go back to the Matthews thing. Like, did you think Matthews deserved a penalty on the 2 roughings that were handed out?
I think there might have been a cross-check before the play started, which is why Pierre-Luc Dubois kind of went a bit nuts. But there was certainly no retaliatory roughing on behalf of Matthews. But again, if that had been a minor penalty only for Dubois, it would not have bothered me one bit if I were the Winnipeg Jets. You kill that penalty off all day long. He basically manhandled Austin Matthews in that situation. So
he totally did. But I mean, I don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm not giving you a full wake up, but I don't think that one player was completely vulnerable and on the ice, and he tried to take his head off, and Pionk started by trying to go shoulder to chest, and his reaction is to stick his leg out. I don't think he was trying to attempt to injure him at all. And even too, I'm going to say this: Spezza had bad intentions, but the result was just such an awkward play. He wasn't trying to knee Pionk in the head. He was trying to hit him, and he might have been trying to elbow him, but he kind of missed so badly that he hit him with his knee. I think it was definitely a suspension. I thought it was going to be more like Mike Lay to be 4 games and possibly 5. It'll be very interesting to see how the appeal process goes from there. Yeah, Spezza had his knee bent because he was trying to go to the ice and catch him with his shoulder or his elbow. So I think one is far more predatory, but I mean, again, the result is bad. I mean, you don't want players to be blowing out their knees. Unfortunately for Sandin, sounds like he won't be missing the year. He'll only miss a couple weeks. That's still very unfortunate for him. But I mean, I think one was much more predatory, but again, an injury occurred on both situations.
Yeah. Here, I want to get to the last thing because I got to catch a flight early tomorrow morning. The Boo Birds out today. So just if you didn't pick it up on TV inside the building, the Jets were heartily booed repeatedly, especially at the end of that 5-minute power play. This on top of against the Coyotes, it was the first time I remember this happening. And I'd like all you out there, if you can remember this, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember the Jets home fans booing their own team out of the toolbox. For me, it's 2 times they did so on this homestand. Once at the end of the game, although it wasn't completely the whole arena, but there was a smattering of boos as that game ended. And then there was definitely, fairly wholehearted booing at the end of that 5-minute power play. And let's be honest, Ken, that power play was boo worthy. It stunk, but it doesn't change the fact that I haven't seen this happen before. So please, if you can remember out there, if you've been to games where you've had booing happen before, throw it into the chat room. But Ken, do you remember this? And what do you think it says?
Yeah, it says the angst level's high. I mean, what we've talked about this season, Sean, expectations are high for this group. They're a skilled team. They've had a top 5 power play in the past, and right now the results have not been there. Even like we said, even though they've had 5 goals in the power play in the last 3 games, they also previously went through a 2 for 34 and a 3 for 38 stretch. So that's not good enough. So they need to do a better job with that. I mean, fans paid their money. They can do whatever they want. I mean, if it makes them feel better, fire away. I mean, I'm not going to try to tell people how to act. I mean, that's up to them. I mean, but no, you're right. I mean, I don't recall it happening certainly very often. I'm sure it doesn't feel good, but I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The Jets were booing themselves for how the power play went. They don't do it vocally, but you could tell by A, body language, and B, how they sunk on the bench. I mean, that was a deflator. And same thing, we've talked about this before. Nobody's more pissed off about a struggling power play than the players themselves. So that's, I don't mean, again, I don't have a strong opinion about it one way or the other, but I mean, again, players are disappointed much like the fans were, so they just show it differently.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think that, and we see it here in the chat room, and I'm going to address exactly what's happening right now. Like, when things go bad and the Jets have a bad game like they do tonight, we've seen it before. There's always a chorus of people calling for Maurice to be fired. We know there's a significant chunk of the Jets fan base that had wanted Maurice fired, not just this year, not last year, but for a long time going back right now. And I just wonder if we're at a stage, like I guess what I'm saying, Ken, is maybe this is something that we should get used to seeing, that when the Jets don't perform up to the level that's expected of them, that the fans just don't quietly pick up their hats and their jackets and head back to their car, that we start to see, a segment of the fan base wanting to make sure that they reflect that inside the building. And it's interesting, Ken, because we've got this culture here in Winnipeg of, for so long, I think there was just an appreciation to have NHL hockey back, that there wasn't an idea that you would do things like that, because it's like there was, let's just be happy that we have this team here, and that Mark Chipman brought this team back, and that we get to witness this, and we'll have time and we'll have patience. I mean, I wonder how much of it too is, Ken, we've talked about the idea of what this team's Stanley Cup window is, and we've been of the mind that, you and I had both talked about the window that we thought was ending 2.5 years from now. And the idea that I think, we've seen enough from the young players that maybe that window gets extended. But the fact of the matter is, I think there's a large number of fans out there. I know there's a large number of fans out there that feel like the window is getting wasted. And maybe it's just at the stage where they just can't hold it anymore. And I just wonder what if what we're going to see going forward is that I mean, I think it would take the Jets absolutely, maybe if that 7-1 game against the Minnesota Wild had been on home ice, maybe we would have heard a full-on chorus of boos. But boos are contagious, right? And you could tell it from that 5-minute power play, because at first it started out with the Jets kind of failing and a smattering of boos, and those boos grew until at the end of that 5-on-5 power play, there was, I'd say, a third of the building engaging in those boos, and then some chants coming out of those boos. That kind of stuff is contagious, and I'm wondering if we're seeing a tipping point here inside the arena on how Jets fans are responding to a team that they think can underachieve at times. Do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, my only counter to that would be I'm not sure how significant a portion of the fan base feels that way, Sean. I think there's definitely the vocal minority is still, I think, in that camp. I mean, is that number growing? It could be. I don't think it's an overwhelming number yet. Could it get to that number? We'll see. I mean, it's all about how the Jets respond. The Jets responded well to losing 6 of 7, and then they didn't play very well today. So let's see how they play moving forward. It's good. I mean, it's not just the fans with high expectations, the players have high expectations, and so does the organization. And when expectations aren't met, changes are discussed and eventually made. But we'll see how things go over the next little while. I don't think that, much like we talk about all the time, I wouldn't overreact to 14 goals in 2 games, and I also wouldn't overreact to a 4-2 loss to the Carolina Hurricanes, who are a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. However, what's going to happen through games 26 to 41, those are important games. And then we'll have a better idea of whether or not things are going to heat up, or, if people are upset, or if people want to be like they are in Vancouver and throw a jersey on the ice. I mean, I don't think for 1 second if a jersey gets thrown on the ice, that's the breaking point for a team to fire their coach, nor should it be. But these are discussions that will continue. What we do know is that, the Jets haven't quit on their coach, so the only way he would be moved is if they feel they're not meeting expectations. And right now the Jets are below the playoff line, so it's up to them to respond and see if they can get back over the playoff line. And the only way to do that is by playing well over a consistent stretch of time.
Well, I think that's a good point, because right now, Ken, I'm not sure. I will say this, and people talk about inconsistencies, but at this stage of the season, I'm not sure what this team is. You know what I mean? A lot of times you want your team to end. You've got all year. This is game 26. You've got 82 games to find your identity. But the Jets have been all over the place this year. And this is just another example that, I go back to the top of the show where I talked about someone talking to me on Twitter saying these last 2 wins, they won it. It felt great, and everyone was rejoicing. Everything looked good when they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it's 2 straight games against teams that had come off back-to-backs with their backup goaltenders. Jets looked phenomenal, but I think you'll agree with me wholeheartedly with this, Ken. The style of hockey that was played against the Leafs and the New Jersey Devils, that was nowhere near playoff hockey. And I don't think that's anywhere near an identity of a Jets team, even though they scored as much as they did. I don't think that's anywhere near the identity of a Jets team that would succeed in the playoffs. So a loss like this tonight, again, I'm going to end the show how I started it. That's a measuring stick game, and they did not measure up here tonight. The Jets should have known exactly what they were going into. I don't think there's any excuse. Paul Maurice can say all he wants that it's a loss on him because he didn't have the Jets prepared for the kind of game that it was going to be. There is no guessing at what kind of game the Carolina Hurricanes were going to come in and play. The Jets knew, those players should have known what they were up against, and they came in woefully unprepared in that game. They're going to need to be better. Chance on a Pacific Coast trip here to turn it around against 2 teams that are well below the playoff line that they should put numbers up on. We'll see how that turns out. Before we go, Winnipeg Ice are playing tomorrow. Get a hold of Ken. He's got 4 tickets waiting for you. If you want him, jump all over him. Again, do not miss out on that team. Very likely.
Big trade yesterday.
Yeah, big trade. You won't see that guy until after, either he goes to the World Juniors or gets cut from Team Canada World Juniors. But get a hold of Ken. Great hockey to be played there. Thank you so much for joining us. I will see everyone on Thursday. I'll be down in Florida at the Board of Governors meeting. So wish me luck, everybody. We'll see you next time.